All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a completely realistic, mathematically sound roadmap to wealth. And the best part, it actually works. We're going to completely strip away all that get-rich-quick hype and look at the quiet, maybe a little unsexy, but incredibly powerful systems that build lasting financial freedom.
Picture this. You're a 32-year-old sitting at your kitchen table on a random Tuesday night. You open up your banking app, check your savings, and there's exactly $214 sitting there. That's it. Not after rent, not after bills, $214 total. It is so easy in that exact moment to feel hopelessly behind, right? Carrying this heavy belief that the compounding years of your 20s are just gone forever. But here's the truth. You are not doomed. You literally just need to understand the map.
So why does your life completely reset at 4 specific net worth levels? Well, here is the core premise. Wealth, it isn't a smooth ramp where you just slowly, evenly climb higher and higher. Not at all. It's actually a series of distinct, totally nonlinear levels. And at each of these 4 levels, roughly 10 grand, 100 grand, $1 million, and $5 million, your life does a complete reset. The way you experience risk, the way banks treat you, and the specific enemy you have to defeat. They all completely change. All right, let's start right at the bottom. Level 1, defeating chaos, also known as the $10,000 wall. When you're below this $10,000 line, your brain is basically running a background panic at all times, because a lack of a buffer makes every little thing an emergency. Just imagine an unexpected $800 car repair hitting you on a freezing Wednesday morning. If you have that cash buffer, you just pay it, right? It's a mere inconvenience. But if you don't, bam, it goes straight on a credit card at what, 24% interest, where it quietly compounds into a massive burden. Getting that first cash buffer literally buys you a quiet mind. So, how do we build that buffer fast? Well, we really have to look at our spending instincts. Take the American instinct of consumerism, buying a specialized $120 gadget for every single problem. Like an avocado slicer you're going to use maybe twice. Compare that to traditional Japanese principles. There's mitate, which is the art of seeing what you already own as a solution, and uchimizu, the absolute golden rule of trying the free solution first. Feeling hot? Open a window before you crank the AC. Can't sleep? Put the phone away before buying a $300 weighted blanket. Adequate is free, and free builds your buffer. Okay, so once that buffer is built, you take these 3 crucial psychological steps to safely transition from just hoarding cash to actually planting the seeds of investment. First, you lock in that 3 to 6 month emergency fund. Second, mentally separate your safety money from your growth money so you don't panic when the market inevitably dips. And third, you start investing just small amounts into simple, broad market index funds. Which brings us to level 2, surviving the plateau. This is often called the hardest $100,000. At what point does the wealth machine actually turn on? The legendary Charlie Munger called this first $100,000 a long, hard struggle. And why is that? Think of it like packing a snowball by hand at the top of a hill. It's freezing cold, your hands hurt, and honestly, it feels kind of pointless. Because at this stage, your own deposits are doing all the heavy lifting. The market returns are so small, they literally feel like a rounding error. But if you keep packing it, eventually it gets big enough that you can push it down the hill and the physics of the hill finally take over. Let's trace that compounding journey out. In year 1, you're doing all the work. By year 5, you're seeing a little bit of growth. By year 10, the market is actively helping you out. But somewhere right around year 12 to 15 is this magical inflection point. That is when the market returns finally eclipse your own personal contributions. The machine is actually feeding you now, instead of you feeding the machine. Just look at the final math on this. If you invest consistently for 30 years, out of a near $1 million portfolio, over $800,000 is generated purely by time. No extra effort from you. You only contributed a fraction of that total. The market and your patience generated the rest entirely on their own. It's crazy. But to survive that long, boring plateau, you absolutely need a strategy you can stick with. On one hand, you have the mathematically superior index funds. These give you broad diversification and incredibly low fees. But on the other hand, you have dividend funds. Sure, they might lag slightly in total growth, but they offer this immense psychological comfort of seeing actual cash deposited into your account on a regular basis. Honestly, the best choice is simply the one that prevents you from panic selling.
And to make sure you actually have the cash to invest in the first place, you need to internalize the Japanese concept of soroban. It's basically a mental abacus. When a master of soroban sees a $120 jacket, they don't just see a jacket. They instantly calculate that it costs 8 hours of after-tax labor, or that it represents hundreds of dollars in future compound growth. This instant visualization of opportunity cost, it is the absolute ultimate antidote to lifestyle inflation. Moving on to level 3, the rules of leverage and how debt actually works. Because as you climb these wealth tiers, your relationship with debt has to fundamentally change. See, debt is not inherently evil. It's really just rented money. The real question is how you use it. There is a stark contrast between how different classes use leverage. Old money uses strategic debt exclusively to acquire appreciating assets or businesses that produce cash flow. But the middle class or new money habit, that's borrowing for fast consumption. A car loan, a holiday on credit, maybe an upgraded kitchen. One buys assets, the other buys a slow, steady financial bleed. What the wealthy obsess over is called the spread. This is the mathematical gap between what the rented money earns and what that rent costs in interest. Through mechanisms like trade credit, where, you acquire inventory on 30-day terms, sell it, and then pay the manufacturer later, you can control assets with infinite leverage, using literally zero of your own cash simply by capturing the spread. It's a total game changer. But when it comes to consumer debt, we need to look back to Japan again. Enter the concept of Giri, which roughly translates to obligation. In Japan, owing money for a consumer purchase isn't just a clever financial strategy. It is treated as a heavy moral weight on your character. It is wildly different from the American culture of, just paying the minimums and casually discussing a $500 a monthly car payment over dinner. There's actually this beautiful anecdote from our sources about a Japanese father who drove an embarrassing, beat-up car for 4 solid years just so he could save up and buy his next vehicle entirely in cash. When someone asked him why he didn't just finance it, his answer was so simple. He said, "The car is not yours until it is paid for." True peace of mind means refusing to carry weight you just don't have to carry. Finally, we cross the $1 million and $5 million thresholds. Levels 3 and 4, buying true freedom. Up here, the enemy completely shifts. You've already beaten chaos. You've beaten boredom. Now, your enemy is your own expanding lifestyle. At $1 million, you utilize the 4% rule. Withdrawing 4% safely gives you about $40,000 a year. Now notice that $1 million doesn't buy you a fleet of luxury cars. But what it does do is generate a phantom salary. It makes your day job a choice rather than a life sentence. Basically, you buy the right to say no. As you push toward the $5 million mark, which is kind of the new standard for generational security, lifestyle inflation becomes the silent killer. The defense here is simple, but it requires immense discipline. Work aggressively to increase your income, but automatically save and invest at least 50% of every single raise you ever get. You get to enjoy life more, for sure, but your wealth machine gets an equal cut. To achieve this, the wealthy ruthlessly keep their fixed costs low. Take the Japanese concept of osagari, which is basically the hand-me-down economy. While the average American family spends over $12,000 a year per child on brand new items, utilizing osagari for gently used strollers, clothes, and furniture saves 30 to 40%. Funneling those exact savings directly into compounding assets is how college funds are quietly, powerfully built. So why do we do all this boring, disciplined work? Imagine getting a phone call that your mother's roof is leaking and it's going to cost $6,000 to fix. If you've walked this path we've been talking about, you don't panic, you don't take on 24% debt, you just say, "I'll take care of it." You get to redefine wealth not as flashy status symbols, but as the quiet, unshakable capacity to protect the people you love. And so we come to the end of this map. You are standing on one of these levels at this very moment. So, are you fighting chaos at the bottom? Are you pushing through the boring plateau? Or are you managing your own appetite at the top? Look at the numbers, figure out where you stand, and ask yourself, what